Country Cousins, Waven's Home's Christmas material being combined into this episode. I've been thinking of reviewing this episode for quite some time, and that's mostly the price of waiting for so long, but also a way of making this Christmas schedule a lot more special in its own way. Because when you have multiple episodes that you just don't want to do, and it leads to the point of having a weak schedule, then you kind of understand to why that there aren't a lot of live-action Christmas material in these schedules like they used to. Because for me personally, it's kind of difficult to look at the live-action Christmas episodes where the majority of them are from Disney Channel and mostly Nickelodeon, but there are only a couple, and they're from shows that I haven't watched before. And I'm trying to be on the safe side on reviewing material that I'm highly familiar with. With this episode taking place in Season 5, which is the finale of Season 5, well, the characters are in San Francisco. This really gave me almost everything, but at the same time, it showcases of what this show is capable of when it comes to having returning characters. 4 years ago, during Thanksgiving week, I reviewed Country Cousins, which is an episode where Raven and Chelsea are meeting Raven's cousins. And with this, while not all the cousins of the family return, only 2 of them, I have to admit they really did a good job on doing nostalgia while also combining that into a Christmas episode. There were 3 plots in this episode, with the main plot of Betty Jane coming over for the holidays and trying to celebrate Christmas in her own way that gets in the way of Raven's holiday chill, which affects Alice's enjoyment of the holiday chill. So towards the end, the two decides to work together, but let's get into the second plot. Booker's plot centers around him opening his Christmas gift too early before Christmas Day, which is a reference to the Christmas episode from That's So Raven, where Raven opened her gift before Christmas morning. And this leads to Booker's gift being part of a charity at the Chill Grill that Victor is hosting, and they need to do everything, well, basically him and his friends are doing everything in order to find a gift before anyone else takes it. The third plot centers around Delroy and Victor bickering when it comes to how Christmas is handled in Victor's way, but at the same time, not in the way of Delroy, which, if this episode could have been 44 minutes, we would have included the other characters from the Country Cousins episode. But then again, considering that they don't want to do another one of those 2-parter episodes, they decided to have 2 characters return, which I can understand why. And truth be told, Raven playing 2 characters is overwhelming for her, especially with her age by the time of them doing this episode. It's mostly for the best, but I can easily see that they really wanted to go all out when it comes to the Country Cousins return, even though it's just only 2 of them. With the main plot centering around Raven and Betty Jane, honestly, compared to how they were interacting from Country Cousins, I really feel like that this is them just attempting to celebrate Christmas, but since both of them, despite being part of the whole family, are from different locations, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to consider what Raven would have accomplished if the locations were reversed while Christmas is all taking place at the Country Cousins location. And I really feel like that Betty Jane is willing to spread holiday cheer of what she gets into when it comes to her type of Christmas tradition. And truth be told, I mostly feel bad for her, considering that she was in Raven's position back at the That's So Raven's Country Cousin special. I'm going to assume that if we had an episode like this early on in the series, then I'm pretty sure that this episode wouldn't have any conflict when it comes to holiday cheer between Raven and Betty Jane. Since that Raven is older and her holiday cheer is a lot more focused compared to last time, as in from the original. Honestly, it just makes me feel like that Betty Jane just didn't have a lot of growing up or doing anything else in order to be a better person back at her place, since her place, with how little we know of it, probably has less going on and less moving forward in comparison to Raven's life from where she lives. It's probably disappointing that we're not going to be having another return of these characters, but if we do, then it will probably be difficult to see what Betty Jane would do if she's stuck in this predicament. So it's kind of depressing that Raven, while being herself most of the time, can still at least move forward, while Betty Jane can't be able to move forward when it comes to being a better person, since that from where she lives is not as moving forward-ish compared to the locations that Raven has been. When it comes to Booker's plot, with him having a vision that a kid found his sneakers but as a gift, honestly, the fact that this show manages to do so many gotcha moments from time to time, this is honestly a gotcha moment that I've seen coming when it comes to Booker switching the gifts while paying the kids cash in order to get the sneakers, but as it turns out, he got a football and his vision came true. You know, I would question the fact that these characters don't learn of what the outcome of what their visions would happen eventually, but then again, shows like these won't exist. Let's be real. And to be real, those sneakers look really good, and truth be told, the fact that it showcases of how much that Booker is into fashion, but not in the same ways as his mother, but with involving sneakers rather than a necklace or clothing, which for me personally, shoes can be clothing, but not similar to pantses or shorts or any of that type of stuff, since that you do need shoes to go out in public. Honestly, it's honestly a good detail to see that they're still using the fashion material from the original Raven's Christmas episode, but involving shoes rather than necklaces. As for the episode ending with Booker getting the sneakers, it showcases that Santa does exist in this universe, as it implied that Santa from the Raven's Christmas episode helped Raven go back in time to prevent the events that happened throughout that episode. Honestly, it's mostly if people will remember that reference, and if you don't get the reference, I don't usually blame you if you go into this show without watching the original, but once you watch that Raven episode, you'll figure it out easily, which makes this ending somewhat wholesome. When it comes to the third plot centering around Victor and Deroy, honestly, since that this is the first time where Victor interacts with the Country Cousins aside from the ending of the Country Cousins episode, honestly, the banter when it comes to Deroy thinking that Victor stole the meat that the Cousins family made themselves, truth be told, what else would the country and the city folk families would have a difficult time getting along with more and more information, learning of they assume the other are stealing from them, which honestly, they really know how to take elements from the Country Cousins episode when it comes to the stolen gravy material, and with this centering around meat. You know, honestly, the pride of being a country person is way more legit than what people realize. And I have to be real, every time I see Raven playing DeRoy in this, honestly, he really takes pride a little bit more seriously compared to the Country Cousins episode centering around Gravy, because since he decides to come over to celebrate Holiday Chill, but then learning information that he's assuming, then honestly, it will probably be difficult to see what he celebrates in other holidays, where he takes pride in those holidays in his own way, legitimately high. I mean, considering that Victor isn't in the wrong when it comes to the decisions that he makes, and he's focusing on the charity event at the Chill Grill, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to what the other characters will react to when it comes to information that they don't know of the Baxter's family. So, I'm assuming that if we have more episodes of this, it will probably have the same plots over and over again, which, the more I realize, as much as I'm mostly disappointed on no further episodes involving these characters since that this show had ended 2 years ago, I'm sure that in the next 10 or 20 years, when they use the same formulas again and again, would die down. Honestly, this episode was lucky since it came out almost 18 years after Country Cousins, but at the same time, if we have more material like this in the next decade or so, it would get really old, and I'm pretty sure that having a continuation in this universe involving Raven's home would be a lot more tiring. Granted, I'm fully aware that in some material that they really wanted to have callbacks and nostalgia, but at the same time, if you're gonna have those types of material, don't use the same ideas again. Because for me personally, I wouldn't review those types of material again if it has basically the same thing as before. But overall, this episode was a really good Raven's Home's Christmas episode, and I'm relieved that I managed to review it after canceling it a few times over the last few years. Since that there was another Raven's Home Christmas episode from this show, I am gonna be considering on it for the next few years. Just don't expect it to happen next year, depending on what I'm feeling. All in all, reviewing this episode really made me satisfied, and that's honestly more than enough of a Christmas miracle. I'm giving this episode an 8.25 out of 10.